What is going on, DeHave Nation? Welcome back to the channel. And I was really intent on waiting until this whole James Harden 76ers saga ended before I wanted to make a video on the whole thing, but now I can't. I think if you asked me a month ago, I probably would have told you that James Harden would be going to the Los Angeles Clippers in a trade package that looks something like James Harden for Norman Powell, Robert Covington, Terrence Mann, and a couple of first-round picks, but now I'm not so sure about that. And with every day that passes, I'm becoming less and less confident that the Harden-Sixers drama will end positively for either side, especially for my 76ers. In this video, I'll be doing a quick recap on all of the craziness that has happened in the past week or so with James Harden, Daryl Morey, and the 76ers organization. I will also explain why I believe that James Harden is very much in the wrong in this situation, but most importantly to me, I will be giving my opinion on what the 76ers should do moving forward with James Harden and the whole fiasco that has occurred over the last week or so, and what they should do about this terrible situation that they put themselves in once again. Let's get straight into the video, folks. So in case you missed it, here's a brief summary of everything that's happened over the past week or so with James Harden and the Sixers organization. Last week, while James Harden was in China promoting something, still not really sure what it is, he had this to say about Daryl Morey, who is the president of basketball operations for the 76ers. Quote, "Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he is a part of," unquote. And just in case you didn't quite catch what he said the first time, don't worry about it because he made sure to repeat the very same sentence once again, just in case things were unclear the first time he said it. This was an extremely shocking thing coming from Harden, given that him and Daryl Morey have an extensive business history working together with the Houston Rockets and now with the Sixers. It was also one of the big reasons he came over to Philly in the first place from Brooklyn. But just before this took place during the offseason, James Harden had made it very clear that he wants out of Philadelphia, even though he opted into his $35 million contract. So let me break this down really simple. After another disappointing playoff exit in the second round for James Harden and the Sixers, in which he played extremely poorly in the closeout games of the series, a lot of people assumed, including myself, that he would be opting out of his player option and become an unrestricted free agent during the offseason. Instead of doing that, he opted into his contract for the upcoming season and immediately requested a trade specifically to the Los Angeles Clippers. A few weeks go by after that, and everything gets quiet on the Harden front until the China incident happens, where he said what he said about Daryl Morey. Shortly after this happens, Joel Embiid actually removes all of his 76ers affiliations from his Twitter account. So yeah, it's pretty safe to say that this is a giant mess that my Sixers are going to have to be very careful with how they navigate through this. I think our first response is to blame Harden for all of this. Don't get me wrong, I really believe that he is mostly in the wrong for this situation, and especially given his history of how he has been very unprofessional at times when he wants out of a team. You might be asking yourself, why would James Harden say these things about Daryl Morey in public, especially given that Daryl Morey and James Harden have had such a good history together? Basically, this is unconfirmed, and it's not exactly a fact that this happened. We don't have very much info on the situation, but the reason that most people are assuming why this happened is because James Harden basically took a pay cut last season so that the Sixers could fill out their roster a little more, and by taking that pay cut, the Sixers were able to sign PJ Tucker and Danuel House Jr., and a lot of people are suspecting that James Harden did this because he thought that after the season, by taking that pay cut, the Sixers would offer him a max extension, and people are thinking that there must have been some kind of verbal agreement between Daryl Morey and James Harden in regards to him getting a very lucrative extension after this season. Instead, no such extension was offered, and I could see where Harden's coming from, especially if he took a financial sacrifice to make the team better, and then Daryl Morey did not live up to his promise of giving Harden an extension. But like I said, these are unconfirmed rumors. We don't know exactly what happened in that regard, so I'm just working with the information I have, and if that is what happened, that is not the right thing Daryl Morey should have done. But I will say there's a lot more that goes into this situation, like how everyone basically praised James Harden for taking that pay cut at the beginning of the season, only to find out that on Christmas Day during the season, while the Sixers played a game that day, that he was very interested in going back to Houston and signing a big deal with the Rockets after the season was over. It was also rumored that the Rockets had a lot of interest in that too. Another thing that happened after the playoffs was that James Harden reportedly wanted the ball more and wanted to have more basketball basketball freedom to be able to run the offense the way he wanted. I don't agree with any of that at all. I think that's pretty delusional coming from him, given that when he's on the floor, there is literally not a possession that goes by on offense where he does not touch the ball. So I think that's a little crazy coming from him, especially with the inconsistent numbers he put up in the playoffs to begin with. I think that's a pretty unfair thing to ask for. Another thing to keep in mind why James Harden is in the wrong here is because all you have to do is look at his history. We know about what he did in Houston to get out of that situation that he was unhappy in. Showed up out of shape. People like to say the fat suit and things like that. I feel like most of you guys know about that. He makes things very uncomfortable for the organization and his teammates when he is unhappy with his current situation. So the teams are just basically forced to trade him. And that's what the Rockets did by sending him to Brooklyn. And that's what the Nets did about a year and a half later, sending him to Philadelphia. And now he wants to do it again and go to the Los Angeles Clippers, which I personally think is a really selfish thing for him to do. You know, Harden says that he loves his teammates and that this has nothing to do with them pretty much. But if I'm Joel Embiid or Tyrese Maxey or Tobias Harris or anyone on the Sixers roster right now, I'm thinking, man, does this guy even care about our team? Like, does he care about us? Like, he's kind of making this whole thing about himself and putting us in a really uncomfortable situation where we don't know what to expect going into training camp or the regular season. Is this guy going to be on our team? Everything is very much up in the air, and I would assume it would be very uncomfortable for players at this point in time. Another thing I will say, James, is that if you want to get traded to the Clippers, slamming your general manager in public on camera is probably not the best way to do it. Making things uncomfortable for the Sixers is probably not the best way to do it. There's basically no trade value for you right now, and really just no market in general. There's probably very few teams that want James Harden, let alone want him enough to trade valuable assets for him. I just don't see the market being there. And with these outbursts that he's putting up on social media, it's only making his value worse. So I'm just thinking, like, if you only want to go to one specific team and get traded there, wouldn't you want to make sure that you're doing everything you can to be valuable to that team so that they want to trade for you? Everything about the way he's handling this is so wrong on many levels. The more issues that he causes for each organization that he's with, the less value he's going to have and the less teams are going to want him, especially, like I said, enough to trade valuable assets for him. I'm generally for the players on a lot of these issues, like what Dame is doing. I think he is in the right in that situation and he has every right to do what he's doing. But in this is just a different type of situation. You shouldn't be able to sign a contract or opt into a contract with absolutely no intention of playing for that team the next season. I think that shouldn't be allowed to happen. And I think it's super unprofessional and, like I said, straight up selfish of Harden to do this for his teammates, for his legacy, and really just for his own reputation. I think that's taken a big hit as well during this whole thing. I'm not even sure that James Harden really cares about winning all that much at this point in his career, which is probably the biggest time that he should want to care about winning. It's like, yeah, I want to win, but only if I make X amount of dollars on this team specifically. And if I don't get those two things, I'm going to make it very, very uncomfortable for everyone around me, including my teammates, if I don't get my way. I just think that's not really a winning mentality. As we have seen over the years, his effort in big games isn't always there, especially, like I said, if things aren't going his way all around him. So I really just feel like James Harden is really wrong in this scenario. Like I said, generally I'm pro player in these types of issues. It's extremely unprofessional though. It makes the league look bad. It makes the Sixers look bad. I think they've done that to themselves quite enough already with some of the decisions they've made in the past and how they run their organization. But I just think there's no way you can look at this situation and say, I'm siding with Harden. It's not always about picking sides and being right. Sometimes it's just about what's best for your team, but it's really put my Sixers in a pickle, and let's get into that. What to do from here if you're the 76ers? I mean, what I would do if I'm Daryl Morey, I feel like my job could be on the line if I'm Daryl Morey, if I'm being honest with you guys, especially given that Embiid is basically siding with Harden. I feel like if you're Daryl Morey and the 76ers, the biggest thing you want to do right now is just keep Embiid happy. This guy has put up with so much unnecessary stuff for a player of his magnitude over the years with the Sixers front office and organization that have really failed to pair him with elite talents over the years. It's pretty unacceptable. You know, you look at the Brian Colangelo thing. He's basically went through 4 GMs or 5 at this point in his career. It seems like every offseason there's a new drama with the 76ers. Ben Simmons, Markelle Fultz, Jimmy Butler. There's always something weird going on. And I understand where Embiid's coming from. You know, he's in his prime. He probably doesn't have, 7 more years of this level of play. I'm saying to myself, if I want to win a championship, this might not be the place to do it. You know, I've been patient with you guys. I love the city, love what you've done for me, but I got to do what's best for myself. So I think Daryl Morey really needs to consider how this affects Joel Embiid and how he feels about the organization going forward, if he's going to want to be here, given all this stuff that he's putting up with. We've seen with a lot of top tier talents in the league, all it takes is just for them to ask out and just not want to be there for them to basically have to get traded at some point during that season. So that's number one. That's the most important important thing in this situation and him wanting to remain a Sixer. Daryl Morey has stated that he's not going to trade Harden for things that he doesn't feel like is a solid return in terms of value. I understand that point of view, I really do. But the more you wait on a situation like this, and the more you allow this to happen by waiting for a superstar return, which I don't think you're going to get in the first place, the more you allow a toxic culture in your organization, and the less happy your players are going to be. If I'm Nick Nurse, I'm thinking, why did I just sign here? This is a disaster. It's just bad for culture. It's bad for just stability for the team overall. And I think if I'm Daryl Morey, I'm taking 3 role players for James Harden, or even 2 and a second round pick. I'm just saying, get this guy off the team. We don't want to deal with this anymore. Probably not going to get an elite talent for him in a trade. You know, don't get nothing for him, but I think Norman Powell, Terrence Mann, and Robert Covington or Marcus Morris seems like a fair deal at this point for James Harden and all the baggage he's going to bring to the Clippers. The Sixers really have no leverage in this trade scenario, and I just think you need to get him off the roster so you can move forward with the season and just look to the future to build your team that way. I just think that's the smartest move. Trade him for whatever you can right now. I would do it literally today. If I could, I would take a couple solid role players. Norman Powell, Terrence Mann are pretty good players. Just anything, just to get him off the team to stop this drama. But that's pretty much it for the video. James Harden versus the 76ers and Daryl Morey. Let's see how this ends. As per usual with my 76ers, there's some kind of insane drama going on with the 76ers organization, the general manager, and one of the players. Happens like all the time. I'm used to it, but I have never been less hopeful going into a season as a Sixers fan. I just really think we need to get our stuff together. Big time mess that we're in right now, that we put ourselves in again, and I'm just along for the ride. I'd be really surprised if this ended well for either party. That's just the way it is. Hope you guys enjoyed. Like I said, drop a like on the video if you guys did enjoy it. Let me know down in the comment section what you think of this Harden situation. How do you think it's going to end for the Sixers? How do you think it's going to end for Harden? Is he going to get traded? Is he going to play for the Sixers? I doubt he's ever going to wear a Sixers jersey in a basketball game ever again. Let me know what you guys think. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. 3 videos a week. I will catch you guys in the next one. This is your boy DeHave, and as always, peace out, buddies.